We are part of the Fired Up Sports Network of shows. Please check out other Fired Up Sports Network podcasts like the P-Lot Pod, Water Cooler Talk, Bell Smashers, Philly Sports Love and Pain, Drunk on Broad, Beer Battered Sports, and the Fired Up Sports Show, which are available on all major podcasting hosting sites and social media. Also, check out Mark Ramos' Roundup on firedupsports.com, which breaks down the happenings going on with all your favorite local teams.
Philadelphia Eagles are Super Bowl champions.
E-A-G-L-E-S Eagles!
Swinging a miss, struck him out. The Philadelphia Phillies are 2008 World Champions of Baseball.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Flyers are going to win the Stanley Cup. The Flyers win the Stanley Cup. For the lead. Yes! Iverson, wow, what a fake off Daniels as he broke his ankles and got all the way to the cup.
Oh, well, good Saturday morning. It's Drunk on the Ice. Mark, we're going to talk a little hockey, which I think going completely. The Flyers start the season. The other night, Thursday night, they're part of an enigma of a day for
Oh boy.
for sports teams in this city. I saw something. I can't remember where it was. I saw something about this is only the second time in the history of teams that have three professional sports teams that all three have lost on the same day. The only other time it happened was in Philadelphia in 1983. We are the only city to do it, and it was so nice. We've done it twice.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, the way that the Philly season ended, flip it over to the Eagles game. They're getting boat raced by the Giants, who had lost to the Saints the previous week. The Flyers were one of the more impressive teams that night. Played really competitively in a game against the two-time defending champs. Talk to me about going into this season, right? Expectations are they're I guess in my eyes, the potential to be in the playoff conversation. Still a lot of holes on the roster. Still a lot of there's a lot to be said about the talent level that they're going to need to be able to be a competitive team, especially in this conference. Just give me your initial thoughts on going into this season.
Yeah, I thought coming into this year, a little bit of, as you said, there's definitely some holes still with this roster, but I think I have a little bit of, I don't know if that's the beginning of the season starting or whatever, but I think I had a little bit more of this group kind of has a little bit of dark horse potential.
Okay. Listen, I can get behind that.
Yeah. And I understand that, like, statistically, like, if you look at like some of the analytics and stuff, like the Flyers aren't very favorite at all. I've seen some models where, they have them finishing at the absolute bottom of the East. I don't think that's going to happen, but I think, some of the things that we had seen in game one, right? Defending Stanley Cup champions, they're dealing with a slew of injuries themselves, right? There was no Kachuk in that game. Barkov, some of the like real heavy hitters in that lineup. But, despite that, Dan Vladar played a really, really great game. And I think that was a big problem for this team last year was the goaltending. If you give them serviceable goaltending, or at least on some nights like that where he can kind of play well enough to steal you a game or two. I was a big fan of that signing. I think we had talked about it over the summer.
Yeah.
And, I kind of thought like I'm not really sure, but the number, it's hard to say because the numbers don't match it. But I've seen him play, and then it was like I think there's something more here, in the right
Yeah,
situation with the right opportunity. I think the Flyers felt that way as well, and he played really well in that game. And they hung around, they hung around and they hung tough in a game where I think the Panthers had a somewhat of a large territorial advantage at times. Like they were really kind of
agreed.
carrying the play, but the Flyers hung on, and it was a close game. It was close right to the end there. So
Yeah, I mean, listen, Mark, I think for me, Vladar is like an eyeballs guy. That's a
mm,
guy that you're going to have to watch to really get a good grasp about what kind of production he's going to give them. I think he provides some veteran stability in that he's not a young guy who's not going to get scared of the moment. He might not be um, in your top third of goalies in the NHL, but he's not in the bottom third either. So,
mm,
like, he's a guy that can kind of fill that role to give them a guy who is going to allow them to continue to be competitive in a game. And you kind of saw that, right? You're 1-1 going into the third against a team, again, missing some pieces, but like still a lot of talent in Florida.
sure.
And to be able to, to be going into the third period 1-1 and playing pretty competitively in those games. I think in game one, we kind of saw a little bit of what Rick Tocchet might bring as the coach for this team, in that you're going to earn whatever points you're going to walk away with. You're going to earn them because this team is going to have that grit to be able to kind of battle through maybe not having that elite level talent to rely
Mm.
on.
Yeah, and two, I think another thing to add to that would be like, um, obviously they get the goal right. The Cates, Brink, Forrester line, and I thought they were the best line for the Flyers, as they've been at times. They're the only trio that was together last year as well.
Yeah.
And they just play really well off each other. I love the way they read off each other. And Forrester and Cates are really, really good board players.
Uh-huh.
Great puck protection ability, and I think Bobby Brink has the requisite like hockey sense to know where those guys are and things like it's a solid line. I think they do a really good job together. Um, the other lines I think were a little makeshift, right? Where it's game one, so they're going to kind of
Yeah.
try a couple different combinations out, and but I thought they played well. They get, like I said, they get the goal there, and the kind of goals you got to score against Florida, right in the paint there.
Yeah.
Noah Cates flips that puck over Bob and makes it a tie game. So those guys were really good, and I think there's real no reason to break them up. Just keep them together and try to piece together the other lines. But I think we'll see a couple different combinations coming up to see how guys fit together, play off each other, and whatnot.
Yeah, I think the idea that they're going to be able to kind of play off each other. Um, when you look at the other two lines, right? What are your thoughts about the line with where I'm looking at Charlie O'Connor looking at practice yesterday, and the second line was Dvorak, Zegras, and Tippett, and I kind of like what Zegras could possibly do for Tippett in terms of being able to get him the puck in space, because he's a guy that if he has the space, we've seen him have the opportunity to be a little dangerous.
Yeah, I think I'm fine with that. I think Dvorak had a really good camp. I think when you look at that signing in a vacuum, and I was one of those people, certainly 1 year deal. He's making pretty good money. I think he's up over 5 mil a year. He had previously played for Talkit when Talkit was in Arizona, and I hadn't really watched him a whole ton, throughout his career. But then watching him in camp, and he's one of these guys you can, he can play wing, he can play center, he can play on your fourth line, he can play on your second line. Like there's a lot of
Right.
different things.
Sure.
So they paid him, I think, for the versatility. Um, and I don't mind that. I think he's more like more of a he's a good face-off guy, and he thinks the game defense first. I think
Right.
that's probably a good thing to put with a player like Zegras and Tippett. Um, and I think looking at where Tip, they're gonna need more from him this year. And
Yeah.
I think he's going to get a number of chances to again prove that he could take another step in his
Right.
development and be a better player, or at least maybe not a better player, but a more consistent player. And I do agree, like Zegras is the type of creative centerman you can put with a player like that, where he should be able to get him the puck in spaces uh, where Tippett's just got to use that great shot, which I think is obviously his best asset. So
Yeah, and you look at the first line with Konechny, Couturier, Mitchkov. It seems like if that's going to be the line that they go with, that first line, they're they're putting their best three on the ice all at the same time, um, which for those guys I think gives all three of them the best opportunity to be really productive goal scorers, and coming from the simple fact that they all seem to be able to be productive whether they have the puck or not.
yeah, I think Michkov and Couturier together. I liked them together last year when they had them together at times last year, uh, and I thought that was a good fit. Connecting as well. I mean, Connecting's a guy that him and Michkov have been able to develop some rapport there, and yeah, I don't mind that as the line. I think that's probably the best you can do. The Flyers seem a little hesitant. I know that I had said over the summer, um, I'm completely okay, especially for a top line, and you're looking for opportunities for guys. Um, I at one point would like to see them just go straight out. A Michkov Segrist connecting line.
Okay.
Defense be damned. Just go fill the net.
Yeah,
And um,
I'm with
I
you on it.
and I think that's why they've had Dvorak up in the top six, is like they want a little bit of that defensive minded thing,
Yeah.
and but hey, like I mean, I think you should just lean into the offense thing and make this a fun, top line, and um, that could be fun. You know what I mean? And they should. We'll see if they try it at some point this year. But
I, listen, what is the worst thing that could happen?
yeah, yeah,
I mean, best case scenario is you get a bunch of guys on the ice that are create a really productive chemistry where they're all playing, in sync. Worst case scenario, you break them back up. Like
yeah,
it's not like the you. I think at some point during the season, Mark, I think you're going to see a lot of that in terms of them figuring out who works best with who.
yeah.
Um, and that's going to involve a lot of trial and error. I think you might see uh, some flexibility even in game to be able to, like, if something's not working. Talkin to me seems like the type of guy that in the past isn't really hesitant to like just sit on something that if he needs to make a move, he's going to make the move. Where
Yeah.
in years past, I can't really say that would have been the case. So,
Right.
um, any surprises on the final roster? Any guys on the final roster that you weren't expecting to be there?
Yeah. I think they might be scheduled to play tonight. But Lichenko and Grabenkin, the two rookies, Jet
Yeah,
Lichenko, former first round pick, of course. Nikita Grabenkin was also he was the prospect that came over in the Scott Lawton trade
correct.
last year, and you know I was surprised for both of them for different reasons. I thought Grabenkin rather he earned um, his spot in camp.
Yeah.
No matter where they put him, he was productive and he looked
Yeah.
good, and he added something, an element to that line. One of the things I really liked about him was that just like you mentioned the word earlier, Don, grit. Um, his ability to get to the net and kind of just cause like just issues
Yeah.
around the opposing team goaltender, whether it's just taking their eyes away, drawing defenders to where the defenders defenders ended up screening his own goalie. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like he just causes a lot of problems because he plays that like such straightforward um, kind of game, and he's definitely somebody who like good puck protection ability, good board player. I thought he had a really good solid camp, and he deserves to be on this team. Lichenko was somebody I think it's such a weird thing because I don't think the Flyers really want to send him back to his junior team. He doesn't slide, so he can't play in the AHL. It's either the his junior hockey team, which is
Right.
awful,
Yeah.
or he's up with the Flyers.
Gotcha.
They were awful last year. His junior team, he was one of guys.
Who was he?
I don't.
Who was he playing for? Do you remember?
The Guelph Storm.
Gotcha. Okay.
He was in Guelph. Guelph's awful, and I think they're projected to be awful again this year. And that was before they even knew they could potentially have Jet. I think back. Um,
I got you.
so I think the Flyers were hesitant or are hesitant to send him back to a situation where um, he's going to be. I don't know how. I think people are worried about what that could do to his development. Um,
Listen, I think at 19, you saw a guy that, for whatever it was worth, made the opening day roster last year, right? Was here for, a cup of coffee and then, went back. I think with a new coach and a new regime, I think the idea is that if he's going to get better, the place where he can get better the most is here with
yeah.
this group, with these guys being around the elite of the elite level of talent. And it's crazy to say this, but like, he's significantly younger
Yes.
than a
Yeah.
majority of the guys. Like the next close, like you've got Mitchkoff at 20, you've got Grebenkin at 22, you get Forrester's 23, Brink is 24. But
Yeah.
like, Drysdale's 23. They have a group of guys that are in that, 23 and under, group. But you've also got guys on there that are, and when I look at, the guys that he's going to be around, right? Him having the opportunity to learn from a 32-year-old Sean Couturier who has been in the league and can kind of show him the ropes, but also have a guy like Trevor Zegras who also has that similar experience, but is maybe a little bit closer and relatable in age at 24.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that I think it's I try to think of it on a player by player basis, but I think in general, I think people often debate this, right? Like fans and things like that. Like, is it better for him to go back to Guelph and play like 22 minutes every night where he's like the only guy producing? Or is it better for him to play at the pro level, albeit very young, and play 9, 10, 11 minutes a night? I'm usually in the camp that if you're playing against the best, that's usually going to be what's going to be helpful for you in the long run. Even if you're only
Oh,
playing 10, 11 minutes a night on the third or fourth line, you're not getting special teams time, but you can earn that. Um, and Lachenko, I think, does some things already that are pretty pro quality, right? Like he can skate. Uh, he's, I think his ability, like off puck, defensive awareness and checking and things like that, knowing where to be and things like he's a smart player and a cerebral player, and I can understand. I can see that in his game already, and he's a great passer, very very good playmaker. I think there are other parts, especially offensively, that aren't necessarily there yet, and we don't know yet if they're gonna fully develop, or I think it'll depend on what kind of role he ends up in or who he plays with, right? But um, I think there's some qualities there, and it's a tough situation because the ideal spot for him would be to send him to Lehigh Valley, let him get his feet wet in the pros.
Yeah,
But his age and things like that and his experience level don't allow him, based on the rules, to go down there. He's either got to go to junior or he's got to stay up with the pro club. So
yeah.
he gets a 9-game trial before his contract kicks in. So I do think we'll see him the 9 games, and depending on how he performs in those games, we'll decide whether or not the Flyers, choose to keep him up. Um, so I don't see a problem with it. Him staying all year, he would be. He
I mean,
definitely
right
has some
right now
qualities to make
he's
up for.
like he's a guy that's kind of slotted in the fourth line, right? He's a guy that's not
Right.
going to play like a ton of minutes, but I think for me, having him around these guys, even if this team is not going to be competing for a top of the table, spot, is better than him being on a crappy team where you could start to develop bad habits
Right.
that then need to be corrected when you start, like when you get back. I think having him here with new coach, right, new staff, that ability to be able to have him in this space, even like again, even like you're saying, even if he's a guy that is a fourth line guy that you kind of stick around all year, that to me is the best opportunity for him to develop into what they think he can be.
Right.
Which, I think best case scenario, he's probably what, second line center, like in
Mhm.
that neighborhood.
Yeah.
Like, but the skill level, you could see it in little spurts.
Yeah. Yeah. And like you said, he's still very, very young. Like, he's young even for his age group. And
I mean, Mark, he is just 19.
yeah, I think
Like
his draft.
turned 19 in August.
Yeah, I think his draft year, he actually was right on the borderline where he might have not even have been eligible for that draft. Would have had to wait a year. Um, and yeah, to your point earlier too, I think with Lichenko, as it regards to him, as it pertains to him rather, I think like too, like the Flyers, and I think a lot of NHL teams value this, but they also value the everyday life of a pro
True.
thing,
Very true.
where like being around a guy, or being like as you mentioned, Sean Couturier, Trevor Zegras, guys who've done it, um, and a player like Zegras being more closer in age than Couturier is with Jet. Um, they value the NHL coaching, the everyday the practices, the travel, all those other things, where you're just being around guys that are at that level, um,
Yeah.
teaches you really how to carry yourself as a pro on and off the ice. And there's somebody who they're an organization that I think really they value that kind of thing, and or they put more emphasis on it. And
Very true.
I do think that that would probably be best for him. I don't think personally that if he did go back to Guelph, it wouldn't be the end of the world. There's always the possibility he could get traded to another program that's a little bit more, that's a lot better. You know what I mean? And then get a chance to
Is
compete for the Memorial Cup and all that other stuff. So
is
um,
that, and I may be speaking completely out of turn, but is that anything that the Flyers can, wink, wink,
yeah,
nod, nod? Can we figure out a way to
I
get him? Like, to me, like all of those guys that are old hockey guys, they all know everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody knows everybody. It
Yep.
is a very intertwined community.
Hmm?
Seems to me like there could be a conversation, between Keith Jones, the GM of his team currently,
Yeah.
and maybe somebody else, and maybe they put the wheels in motion to say like, hey, you know, can we get him in a better spot, please?
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. That's just like thinking. I know it's probably never like that. That's probably not the case ever. Like, but I don't know. Part of me thinks like if
They may,
if they really have their heart set on him not being here,
yeah.
then getting him to a better spot might be something that they would be the intermediary and help to facilitate.
Yeah. It's I don't know. Like I'm sure. I think certainly there might be some rules about that, but they're kind of
I'm
rules
sure there
like
are.
nobody really, everybody
And
just kind of,
yeah, yeah. The underwritten,
everybody,
the unwritten rules. Yeah,
yeah, like maybe an unwritten rule that everybody knows is wrong, but everybody does it anyway, kind of thing. And they're just,
very true.
um, I don't know if they have like the ability to do that or not. I'm sure they speak to guys. Um, Around, I know that at Guelph, uh, what is it? Corey Stillman is the coach there, and Corey was a former NHLer. Um, so I don't know if his paths had crossed with Briere and Jones at some point, but um, I'm sure they probably
I'm
have.
sure within the 6 degrees of Jonesy, I'm sure there's someone that knows someone.
Yeah, he knows everybody. Jonesy knows everybody.
He
So
really does. Between
uh,
his work as a player, as an analyst, as a coach, like he has had his hands in the hockey circles for a while. And I
long
think
time. Yep.
what's funny is like his role with WIP was like he portrayed himself as kind of like a goofball.
Yeah.
Um, Part of me thinks that was like he's putting on a little bit of a show that
Mm.
like he's a lot smarter than I think people give him credit for.
Yeah. Yeah. I think so. Um, Definitely. Briere has that ability is I think as well, where they're very good at like concealing it and keeping they're very coy. They can be very
Oh,
coy
very much so.
and yeah, and I think that that probably helps them in whether it's talking to people or trades or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, so no, I definitely think for them, I'm sure they have spoken to people and uh, as a about Lachenko and his development and
Yeah.
what would be best there. It sounds like I said earlier, it sounds like they're going to play tonight though. Gurbankin and Lachenko are going to skate on the fourth line, and that'll be an opportunity for them to get in against another good team
Very
in
much
the
so.
Hurricanes, and we'll see how they do. There's always like, and I think that's what you sell them on as young players, right? It's like you're on the fourth line, but there's obviously what you do in the minutes we give you will dictate how many more minutes you may get.
Right.
So it's up to you to like go out there and do it. So um, it's all arbitrary. It can change at any time, and your play will dictate that, and as it
Oh,
should be.
most definitely. Now, any concerns about the depth on the D? Because they well, let's just be honest, they appear very thin.
Yes,
Um, they're once you get past that first pairing, um, it drops off significantly.
right. Yeah, um, and that was before Cam York got hurt, and now York's hurt.
Yep.
So now they're really, really thin.
Right.
And but I'd like kind of, it's been out there. now from a lot of people in the know. I think Frank Saravalli, Elliot Friedman, 32 Thoughts, they've had out there that the Flyers are very much working the market for another defenseman to add. It sounds like via trade. And that would be the most. I think they're set right now with they're comfortable with what the goalie situation is. The forward core is a work in progress, but there's definitely talent there, and there's different opportunities to kind of try some different things.
Right.
The defense is muddled, and it's a bit of a mess, and um, so I think them looking to add another defenseman is them doing what they need to do, and but it is a concern. And I mean, if York misses, I don't think he's scheduled to miss a lot of time, but if he were, it could be really rough. I mean, Travis Sanheim played uh, night one; he played like over 25 minutes or something like that. And while it's great that he can do that, you don't want to tax that in the
That
first half of the
yeah, I was gonna
season.
say that's not a trend you want to be setting to
Yeah,
have him be logging that amount of minutes on the ice. It's
in game one, you know.
in game one, right?
Yeah,
And the way that the way that they start out the season, right? No one's really doing them any kind of favors. Um, they got a rough stretch to be able to start the season with Florida, Carolina, Florida, Winnipeg, Minnesota, Seattle, Ottawa. Right, you're gonna face
yeah.
some really tough opponents early. Um, any concerns about that in terms of starting the season off kind of battling uphill?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of good teams there. Sometimes I think the best time to catch them is early in the year. Some of those better teams, they haven't, obviously their off seasons were a little bit shorter uh, with playoffs and things like that. Florida in particular, like as we said earlier at the top of the show, they're dealing with a lot of injuries to key guys. They're coming off back-to-back Stanley Cup years. There could be like a fatigue factor there, especially early. And sometimes, like I think it's just the best time to catch them because not everybody's got their legs yet. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And uh, so not necessarily concerned about it. Their record will be what it is, but um, I think they'll be fine. And it's an opportunity to kind of just right away test your metal against some good teams and see exactly where you're standing. But it's a good time to definitely like log those points, if you can against teams like that, because it's a lot tougher to compete with them in February. You know what I mean? When they're really like kicking in the
I was gonna
high
say
gear.
when they're starting to ramp up and kind of
Mhm.
prepare for that the run of that second half of the season.
Yeah,
Um, maybe better off to run into them now while
yeah,
they're still figuring stuff out, or guys are I got to imagine the guys in Florida are they've logged essentially a significant portion of a season
hmm
in their last two playoff runs, right? When you look at the extra games, minutes, I got to imagine, right? Two consecutive Stanley Cup playoff runs comes with a little bit of rest on the front end of the following season because if they're trying to prepare to go for a third, um, they know that locking those minutes, if there's a time to you know schedule some off time, that they're going to give them the opportunity to be able to do that.
yeah, yeah, and too, like this year's an Olympic year, so the
Very
NHL's
true.
going
I didn't think
back
about
to the
that.
Olympics, and those games are very, very taxing. Very high
Yeah.
stakes kind of games, and with the NHL players going back to play in the Olympics again, uh, that'll be a whole new fatigue factor. You know what I mean? Even
When is
though
the timing on that?
um,
When the
I want to
Olympics?
say February. I want to say the Olympic breaks in February. Um,
Look, all right, yeah, February 6th. So the Winter Olympics
Mm,
in its entirety are from February 6th to the 22nd.
okay, yeah.
So
So the NHL will be off that time. We'll be sending players, but
yeah, we'll see.
yeah, yeah. So we'll see. The Flyers. I mean, Travis Sanheim might be. I think he's on Team Canada's radar. Konechny could be potentially as well. Um, so we'll have to see what happens there. Flyers might have some players going as well.
Yeah, so so that NHL break for the 2026 Winter Olympics, last regular season game played on February 5th, and then play resuming on February 25th.
Yeah, yeah,
So you've got a significant chunk of time, especially, and that is essentially gives them the opportunity to be able to get guys rested for that last stretch, especially if they're going to be a team that is going to be at the back end of the playoffs, right? If they're
Mhm.
competing for, if they can figure out a way to be competitive, I think that's a good opportunity for them to, really look at that to be a place where they can maybe get guys healthy.
Mhm.
Um, I'm curious to see how the season plays out and how they kind of attack the roster mid-season, right? We know that if they look at I can't imagine the scenario where they're like one guy away is
Yeah,
not where they're at. But how this season plays out is going to determine how they attack the offseason, because the
Mhm.
offseason is every part of the conversation that we hear is that the offseason is where they're going to this particular offseason is where they're going to be significantly active in
yeah,
terms of player acquisition.
yeah. And you know, uh, 2026 was shaping up to be an elite free agent class, and now that's quickly evaporating. Right, guys are re-signing with their teams, uh, as Kaprizov signed a Kirill Kaprizov with Minnesota signed a historical deal. Connor McDavid re-upped in Edmonton. Jack Eichel re-signed in Vegas. So um, there it's going
Yeah,
to have to come through trades and stuff like that. I mean, but they'll have all the ammo. They just got to be, um, ready to deal. Which it does seem like Briere and all are, they're already looking at the market
yeah,
for defense help and things like that. And I think that's
yeah,
the right place to be looking.
yeah. Listen, when you look at the guys that could potentially be available, as it gets closer to that time, that list becomes significantly less
Yeah,
impressive.
yeah,
Um, and it would have been interesting to see had those guys gone to free agency and to see. I mean, part of me was also kind of wanting to see what a guy like Connor McDavid would get on the open market.
yeah,
Like what kind of, like, I know NHL numbers are not like some other sports, but to see to see a generational talent like that, to see what he would fetch on the open market, and to see what teams would be willing to pay him.
yeah.
Part of me is like, I I wanted that just to see what the potential value is.
Yeah, yeah, I would have loved to have seen it too. Players like him just don't. That just doesn't happen in hockey. Guys of his caliber hitting the open market like that, and now the NHL money is getting a lot better. Right, Cap's expected to go up, so it's like, then what could he get? Right, like Kaprizov signed a historical deal with Minnesota.
Yeah,
Um, I believe Eichel and McDavid came in lower than Kaprizov's number as of right now, which I think, at
yeah.
least with Edmonton, I think McDavid, did them a little bit of a favor. He could have really cashed out
Yeah.
there. And, but,
I mean, they got themselves one hell of a steal for a guy who is
yeah,
arguably one of the most talented players in the last 25 years.
Yeah, yeah. So we'll see. We'll see what it looks like, at that point. But I'm happy that they're not kind of there's not a day wasted on trying to improve this team today. Getting a piece like looking at how things went in camp, and then all of a sudden these rumors come out, about the defense
Yeah.
and the Flyers looking to add a D. I think that's they're not gonna. It kind of seems like they're a little bit more open to, it's time to take another step here, and that's exciting.
All right, Mark, I'm going to give you a guy. Would you be bringing back Sergei Bobrovsky? Would you make a run at a guy to bring him back, even though he'll be 38?
Is he free agent this year?
He
Or
is currently on the list of free agent. Yep.
yeah,
Yeah, he's
okay,
currently on the list. So um, at 38,
yeah.
would you bring back a guy that you gave up on, who went
I
on to become arguably the best goalie in the NHL?
Yeah, yeah. Historic, like Hall of Famer.
Right?
Um, yeah, that one hurts.
Yeah, that
um,
one hurts a lot, considering
yeah,
the chasm that was left
yeah,
um, in his wake, the success that he went on to have, um, and the guy that you
yeah.
passed him over for, ended up being an abject disaster, and it has been a revolving door ever since.
Mhm. Yeah, I would be open to it. I would definitely want to bring him back. I think
Again,
even
Mark, what's the worst that could happen?
yeah, he's still pretty good. I mean, he's still very good.
Yeah,
Even in his late 30s. I think that would be cool. Too. I think though people would just be like, which I mean, the Flyers have been through multiple regime changes, multiple thing. That was a long time ago at this point, but I think like a lot of people would be like, well, they're trying to as if they're trying to correct a wrong that they made many years ago. It's like,
yes,
no, I mean, I even in his late 30s, if he could help the team win games, and that's what they're in the business of doing right now, I would be like, oh yeah, like absolutely, let's bring Bob back. Who cares? Like,
right,
it has nothing to do with what happened in the past. I mean, we know what happened there.
yeah,
But that could be fun. Yeah, I would
right.
be open to it. Yeah,
That's odds are that we'll say this, and then in about a week or two, we'll hear that he signs an extension to stay in Florida, and he'll go on to win 5 consecutive Stanley Cups. But before we jump out, the guys that have recently signed extensions. So Kaprizov was 8 at 136. Um, McDavid's was 2 at 25, which makes him the second highest player on
Hmm.
the team behind Draisaitl.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, Jake Wallman's 7-year, 49 million. Kyle Connor stays in Winnipeg for 8 at 96. Um, Ekholm stays in Edmonton at 3 for 12, and then Jack Eichel's 8 at 108.
yeah. I mean, those
So
are
guys are
pretty.
staying. They're getting big. They're significant investments. They're getting those guys are getting big money, but um, it does leave a very decent wake of like not as impressive names.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So I mean, um, as there usually are, though, there are players that could trickle through,
Oh, very much so.
that make their way to market, and that could definitely help this team. This Flyers team. So we'll see as the season goes along. I mean, things will change with guys and negotiations and that kind of stuff. And but yeah, I mean, it should still be a pretty decent class. I mean,
All right.
last year was kind of barren. Um, but I would imagine that this year is a little bit better in terms of finding notable improvements on the free agent market.
Oh, most definitely. And listen, Mark, I can't get enough of the Porter Martone highlights from Michigan State.
Yeah.
He's been impressive, and kind of makes me hopefully optimistic
Hmm.
that when this starts to turn, that they're gonna have a big influx of talent,
Oh yeah.
young talent,
Hmm.
over the course of the next 3 to 5 years, where
Yeah.
They can bring the young talent, add the free agent to supplement what they're doing. Building it the right way is kind of the only way to it's kind of the only way to do it.
Right.
Otherwise, you're kind of chasing your tail with the salary cap. So,
Right.
anything we missed, Mark, before we jump out and talk Sixers?
No, I don't think so. I think we got everything. They play tonight, and then
Yeah.
Monday night they come home for their home opener against Florida. But I think that's we touched on everything that's been out there.
All right. Well, listen, on the way out, go Flyers. We'll see you on the other side.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Flyers are going to win the Stanley Cup! The Flyers win the Stanley Cup!
We are part of the Fired Up Sports Network of shows. Please check out other Fired Up Sports Network podcasts like the P-Lot Pod, Water Cooler Talk, Bell Smashers, Philly Sports Love and Pain, Drunk on Broad, Beer Battered Sports, and the Fired Up Sports Show, which are available on all major podcasting hosting sites and social media. Also, check out Mark Ramos' Roundup on firedupsports.com, which breaks down the happenings going on with all your favorite local teams.
The Philadelphia Eagles are Super Bowl champions!
Swing and a miss. Struck him out. The Philadelphia Phillies are 2008 World Champions of Baseball.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Flyers are going to win the Stanley Cup! The Flyers win the Stanley Cup! For the lead! Yes!
Iverson, wow, what a fake on Daniels as he broke his ankles and got all the way to the cup.
Oh well, we're back on the other side talking all things Sixers. On Drunk on the Court, Mark. We've had a couple of glimpses into some preseason games. If I'm being honest, not a whole lot to see. There's a lot of guys that are on the day-to-day list.
Yes.
The game last night, the preseason matchup against Orlando last night looked. We were talking a little pre-show, a lot like some of those games at the end of the year with guys that are, how do I say this kindly, significantly down on the back end of the roster. Some of those guys will spend a lot of time in Delaware with the Blue Coats. VJ Edgecombe has me excited for the youth and the athleticism. The thought of him being able to play alongside of Tyrese Maxey is something exciting, something that I'm looking forward to kind of seeing how that plays out. Let's start there. Let's start with the guard play in terms of, right, they bring back Quentin Grimes. Quentin Grimes holding out for a significant amount of time, looking at a number that I don't think anyone was really thinking that number that he was asking for was realistic at all. I mean, if I'm being honest, right, he was looking at what he was trying to see if he could get 25
Yeah.
plus a year.
Yeah.
Talk to me. Let's start with the guard play. Talk to me about that group.
Yeah. I'm really excited about that part this year. We're kind of shifting right away with a lot of the injuries and things like that, uh, we're kind of shifting our focus, or at least it looks like the organization's starting to shift their focus to like, hey, this is the strength of our team now, so we're going to try to build
Yeah.
as it pertains to that. I think I'm very excited to hear that, you know, I believe Nick Nurse has said that there have been times where he's had, I don't know if it was in practice or whatever, but um, uh, Tyrese, Jarrett, and VJ all together on the floor at the same time, and
Yeah.
that they look comfortable. And I think that probably has a lot to do with Edgecombe's versatility. Um, and the fact that the other two guys can kind of play off that, I think is pretty exciting to have like that kind of play from and have guys fit that well. We'll see what it looks
Yeah.
like in games, of course, but um, once they start to count. But I think that that's actually really that's fun. That's a
Yeah.
fun
Oh
kind
yeah.
of look, and we'll kind of make them a little little unique in the sense that like you just don't see three smaller players. Like even when teams go small, you don't see the three of them have those types of particular skill sets like the three of them do.
Yeah. And listen, right? You've got McCain that within the last 2 weeks has the thumb surgery, so good
Mhm.
that they're getting that done now. But getting young and athletic, especially at that spot, is kind of where the NBA is going, right? The days of like having the big guy in the middle, right? You saw how the finals played out, right? You've got a lot of young, athletic. Um, Oklahoma City, obviously, with some a significant talent advantage. They've got a lot of length and athleticism, um, but I'm curious to see how that grouping kind of looks together.
Mm.
Um, are they able to get guys in space because of their height? Are there going to be opportunities where they're going to struggle, or does it give the team the ability to be able to create space for Joel Embiid when he's on the court, Paul George when he's playing? Right, those two are going to drive how the team plays, and it's almost like you have to have two different styles of play.
Right.
One for when they're there and they're available, and one for when they're not. Because the comments from Joel Embiid off season kind of give you the glimpse into the fact that like they're going to be he's not going to push it a whole lot. That like if he's not feeling 100%, that you know it's a night off. This team has kind of burned a whole lot of bridges in this city, if we're being kind. Um, and I think with the way that last season played out, with how the injuries, manifested, and then you look at the way that the season just kind of devolved into essentially watching a C D level team by the end of the season, and that's nothing against the guys that were on the court. That's just the fact that like the guys that were playing on the court didn't belong on an NBA court.
Yeah. It's true. When I watched last night, um, I did see some good things from guys that, even though they're not they're not going to make or break the group, but they did some good things. Like I thought, like a Dean Bona, who we saw last year do good things in
Yeah,
an expanded role. Um, I thought he did some good stuff in that game. A lot of good interior presence, defensive presence. Dominic Barlow also played a really good game uh, last night.
yeah,
And there's like a roster bubble guy, who might end up like, depending on injuries and things like that, that we're kind of penciling in. He might see some time. Um,
yeah. You never know. No, everybody's on the table.
yeah, and I mean, he almost went double double. He played 29 minutes. I think he was the second. He played the second most minutes for the Sixers last night, and
Okay.
he went 12-9. So, um, and showed like really like the length, pretty athletic,
Okay.
Good, had a couple nice putbacks on rebounds and things like that. These are guys that they might have to, but like you said, the real Don, like you said, the real thing that is going to make this year really, really hard is that like paying on one hand, you're paying guys a lot of money, and when they play, are like they're going to have to use them in the way that they're comfortable using them, or the way that they're comfortable contributing the players. And then on one hand, you have a different look with Maxie McCain and Edgecombe, and
Yep.
that's a different style, like a different kind of
Correct.
way you're going to cut. It's a really, I feel for Nick Nurse in the sense that he's going to have to somehow get that all under the same umbrella and get
Yeah.
that to fit. Because we said this over the summer as well, that like the East is very much wide open in terms of like,
I mean, it could not be the way that the player movement kind of played out on the offseason. They're really there's a let's just be honest. I'm gonna go back to like when I was a kid. Remember like the pick your own adventure books where it's
yeah,
like, oh, if you want to go down the left side of the road, go to page 37. But if you're going to the right side, go to page 45. I feel like that could be like this season is really like a choose your own adventure. Like
yeah,
it's going to it could play out in a number of ways. And I look
yeah,
at this team and I go like, I'll pay attention. I'm not I'm not super dialed in because of how last season played out. Um, but I look at this and I go, it really just depends on who's on the court, who's playing, and how they're playing. And I know that's kind of like a really like plain generic way to say it, but it's like I like there were some questionable things in the off season that really kind
yeah,
of like put my brain in a pretzel. Like with the youth that you have available, bringing back Kyle Lowry and Eric Gordon doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. You have veteran guys that you
mm,
can kind of lean on, right? You've got an Andre Drummond, which I know that they would love to be able to kind of move on from that. Um, you've got a Kelly Oubre, which is a guy that has enough NBA vet experience. But like those two guys are old and slow. And the fact that they were, you know, the fact that they were even in consideration, like I would have rather spent that money on younger guys that you might take a chance on, guys that, maybe down the roster somewhere else, and you bring in and you might think that if you give him an opportunity to get more minutes, that's something that could be to your advantage.
mm-hmm,
I don't see the advantage of having those two guys in particular. Having
yeah,
them on the roster seems um, it's questionable and it seems redundant as well.
yeah. I think so. Kyle is in a player analyst role or something. Like he's going to be on like
On Prime,
Prime when he's not playing. I thought
like
that was strange. Like he's
like
gonna
what
do TV, but he's also on the team. I also feel like there's a conflict of interest there. I don't know who let him do that. You
that
know what I mean? Um,
and listen, Mark, you can't like what we know, and this is like life, but like you can't try to do two things and be able to do them both well
right.
because like if you're trying to be a good analyst, then you have to look at it one way.
Mhm.
But if you're trying to be a productive player, well, then you have if you are investing time in both, the most likely scenario is you're going to be kind of average at both.
Right.
And he's already like a player who, I mean, a declining player that was drafted in 2006.
Right.
I mean, he's going on what year? That would make what year 19?
Yeah.
Year 20 by the end of the season. Like he's 39.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't really understand that, and I don't know why the Sixers wouldn't be like, hey, like we love you, you're a local guy, all those things. But like if you want to go do TV, go do TV. like, and just
Or
know
like,
that the door's
yeah,
always open here, kind of thing.
like if you
Um,
wanted to put him on a like if he wanted to be around the team, put him on a staff.
yeah, he can be on the
Like
staff.
like
Yeah,
let's be honest, on the staff there's like 17 guys in tracksuits.
yeah, yeah.
Like
I,
give him a suit, let him be on, let him continue to foster those relationships with the young guys because I think on that level it could be beneficial to have him around.
yeah,
But there's a huge difference between having him around and having him dress
right.
and play any amount of minutes.
Yeah, I the, it's funny that you said this all just as a sidebar, not to drift too far off because there were some things I wanted to say about Eric Gordon as
Sure,
well, but it was
go
like
ahead.
you said the thing about like the coaches and like there's all these. I do not remember it being like that. Every team comes with like a crew of people, and they all got the black tracksuits on with the logo and all.
Yep.
And last night there was a couple of times last night on the Sixers bench, which just made me because you mentioned that guys were getting up like halfway on the court, directing traffic and all. And I was like, I'm surprised security didn't go and grab this guy. You know what I mean? Like the security, the
Very,
building security, to be like, does this guy work here? Like he's like on the
very
third
much so.
row of coaches behind the bench, behind the players. I don't ever remember it being like that. But now
All
it
right,
seems like in recent years, like these staffs are just like they're
it's
like
crazy.
35 people deep like on the bench. Like the players look like this on the bench most of the time because they got people all around them. I don't remember it being like that, but
All right, so Mark, you ready for this?
yeah,
I'm looking at one, and this is on the Sixers website.
yeah,
I'm looking at their basketball operations
okay,
staff slash coaching. So these are guys that are on
yeah,
the bench. You've got a head coach. You've got 4 assistant coaches.
okay.
You've got
Seems
the
common.
right. You've got the strength and conditioning coach,
Okay,
the associate strength and conditioning coach.
what the?
You've got the applied sports science assistant performance coach. You've got 4 player development assistant coaches. You've got 2 skill development coaches, and you've got a chief of staff.
The
Like what what I don't know. That to me is like do you, for this, and listen, I'm going to be for this team you need that, like maybe you do because of the guy because of the talent level, but like I don't know.
well,
That to me seems like if you have to sit in the second or third row as a
yeah,
coach, you are not making a significant contribution to the game. If
right,
you need to be up in a box, seems to me like you could be up in the box
and do your
still
job.
doing your job.
Yeah,
But if you're in the second and third row,
yeah.
what are we really doing?
Yeah, like in football, like your defensive coordinator sitting upstairs in most cases. You know what I mean? Like on the headset and stuff. So I don't understand having that's what like if I was an NBA head coach, I would want as little clutter on that bench. Like that's my domain. I do the job there. The third assistant associate skill development guy. I like you personally. You're welcome to come to practice, but sit your ass upstairs while I'm trying to coach this. I'm trying to coach my basketball team. Like I don't
Right?
understand why he's out there, and then like they're getting up and they're doing stuff. Like it's very distracting. Like, and
Very
I'm like,
much so.
dude, you know. So that was just a side thing that I noticed, especially last night for a preseason game. I think there was more people sitting in those rows than there were throughout the entire building for a preseason game. You know,
It really is crazy.
like
You know,
and
and
yeah, you used to have like a couple assistants and your head guy, and then maybe a couple trainers sat there. So
I
it
mean,
was
but
like
normally the trainers are at the back end of the at the
right,
like I don't know.
yeah, yeah,
It's puzzling, right? But
yeah,
so you were mentioning Eric Gordon. right?
Yeah.
Eric Gordon is going to turn 37.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like last year, he's playing almost 20 minutes last year. And the stat line is like 6-1-1.
Mm-hmm.
Like in 20 minutes, he's averaging 6 points, 1 rebound, 1 assist.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Like
Yeah.
there are guys that
Yeah.
are 10 plus years younger who will give you that or better. Like he's not like, okay, he's a 40% 3-point shooter. Great.
Yeah.
That's great when you're when he's playing and you're already down 27 in the third quarter.
Mm-hmm.
At 3-point, those 3 points mean absolutely nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it doesn't. And, also too, like, like with Kyle and Eric Gordon, both are guys that they've had wonderful NBA careers. You know what I mean? Like objectively great careers for both of them. Kyle's a
Yeah.
champion, an NBA
Uh-huh.
champion. Eric Gordon, remember at one time was one of the better athletes in the sport.
Yeah,
Um,
listen, Mark, Eric Gordon at 27,
yeah,
I'm on there, right? Like really
right.
productive with the Rockets. Played really well next to James Harden. Yeah, 100%.
Yep.
100%.
And
But like,
they were yeah, but then at like this point of his career, like with Gordon, and then all that trouble that we heard about with like he was accused of being the locker room snitch, and it was like, if I'm the Sixers, I'm just like, okay, listen, that we
bye-bye.
can't have. I don't even know if I believe that it was you or not. Just you're gonna have to go somewhere else, or again, offer him a job, advisor to the GM, have them do a little pro scouting for you, whatever it is. You can offer these guys something and still maintain a relationship with them if you like them and respect them and everything that they've done in the NBA. I have no problem with that. But when you're offering them like
Ultimately.
actual NBA deals because they still want to play or whatever, we're not running we're not running like a retirement tour here, like for guys to come here, collect one more check and play. Like,
Yeah. And
and
Mark,
you're trying to win.
as I'm going through their roster, right? There's 5 guys on this roster that are over 31.
Yeah, that seems like too many for a team like in their predicament.
I mean, listen, outside of Joel Embiid and Paul George, there shouldn't be any.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm being honest, like you don't need Kyle Lowry, Eric Gordon, and Andre Drummond.
Mm-hmm.
From what we've seen from Adem Bona, he's given you either the same or better production than Andre Drummond.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, outside of those 2 guys, like, I don't need any of the. I don't need guys that are old and trying to hang on. Like, I don't need 40-year-old Kyle Lowry and what will be 40-year-old Kyle Lowry and 37-year-old Eric Gordon. I don't those guys, right? And between those guys, Kyle Lowry is going to make 2.2 this year,
Mm-hmm.
and Eric Gordon's going to make 3.4.
Yeah.
Like there's almost $6 million that could have been spent on a younger, more athletic player, and to go to a guy that a guy that you had talked about at the beginning of the show, right? A guy like Dominic Barlow, right, who's 22, he's 6'8", and he's 215.
Mm-hmm.
He should be a guy that you can maybe invest a 10, 11, 12 spot on your roster
Yeah.
and be able to get comparable production than to the old guys. It's
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah.
That part is really frustrating.
Yeah, and it's like that money can sign a more productive, like if you're hell bent on having a vet around,
Yeah.
that might, I mean, guys get picked up on vet minimum deals far more
Oh,
productive every
big
year.
time.
Every year,
Yep.
the buyout window happens and guys get become available, and there's opportunities for guys to play. You know, I didn't even know that was what Kyle was making, and he ain't even working for them full time. He's going to be doing TV. I'm sure he's getting something from Amazon to be on TV. So,
Yeah, he's not doing that for free.
yeah, he's not doing that for free. So, I, like, yeah, like, is it? I don't really understand that either, because if you're going to go with like Trenton Watford, Dean Bona, and let's say Dominic Barlow did make the team, and you
Right.
were going to have him as a, like, those are your guys that can, maybe not full time, like for like in Barlow's case, because he is 6'8", so he's a little undersized to play the five all the time, although he can do it.
Right.
Um, like, you rotate it and whatever, and if it like completely goes belly up, then you're in a position where you're going to have the pick, and later
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
you try to add that way, because that's all they can really do, because the other two guys that we're waiting on, we don't know how often we're going to have those guys, as we've
Yeah.
said before. So um,
And those two guys, Mark, are consuming a lot of your salary cap.
yeah, yeah,
Right. So you've
and
got Embiid at 55 and Paul George at 51.
right,
And then you've got Tyrese Maxey at 37.
right,
So you've
right.
got a significant portion of your salary wrapped up in those three guys. And when two of them are probably not going to be available together to play together,
Hmm.
I think that if you're Nick Nurse, you have to build this thing around the guys that you know will be available, which are going to be your Tyrese Maxey, your Jared McCain, and your VJ Edgecombe, and you kind of go from there. You try to get, if it's me, I'm trying to get the most athletic five that I can get on the court.
Yeah.
And to go back to what we were just talking about, that ain't Kyle Lowry and Eric Gordon.
Yeah, and
I mean, Justin Edwards is another guy,
yes, Justin Edwards, of course. Yeah,
right? 6'7", 200, but like you saw him be productive in spurts.
yeah,
And again, we're not talking about a team that is competing at the top of the East, but I think that if they play their cards right, they could
right.
be a playoff team.
Yeah, I totally think they could 100% make the playoffs, because the East is so, you know, it's so wide open. It's
Yeah.
it's it's injury ravaged, and it wasn't that deep to begin with after free agency. So
Yeah.
I don't really know, um, you know, uh, they're gonna have to like play it a certain way, and they have to understand. Like, I mean, and maybe that's a part of it as well, because you're dealing with personalities and guys and egos even, and um, like, if guys are going to play that are out, whether it's Embiid or George, and they're going to come in, and like, I'm not really going to be interested in hearing about why so and so doesn't have the ball more and
Yeah.
things like that. It's like, we have to they are going to have to understand, because of their lack of availability, there's only so much we can do. We have to run this another way. Like, you're going to have to take on another role. I
Yeah.
don't want to say, because I don't know them personally, but I think, I truly believe Joel wants to win, and I think he would take a reduced role, knowing that he isn't the player that he would be if he were fully healthy,
Right.
with none of this injury baggage. Not too quite sure about Paul George, if PG is open to that or not, but he's going to
I
have to
mean,
be.
listen, Mark, it has become very apparent in the last handful of months and years. He took the deal because it was the deal that offered him the most money. And
Yeah,
I will never fault a guy for, if you get offered, a significant portion of money more than what you were earning to do the same job, then
yeah.
I won't fault him for that. But
I don't think he had any real interest in leaving LA at
no,
all, because
not at
he's
all.
from there, and but the
He's
money,
always been a guy who's kind of been itching to get back to the West Coast.
right? And I
The
think you
fact that he
just,
came to the East Coast, you knew
yeah,
it was a money grab
hmm
from the start. But I look at that and I go, all right, like I think your point is pretty spot on. Where you say like you need to take a reduced role. You need to know that like we need you on the court to be productive. So like when you're on the court, be productive. But like we need you to understand that this team moving forward is going to move through Jared, Tyrese, and VJ.
yeah. I think of it too, like where I think of like a player like, and it doesn't happen as often anymore, but I think of like a player like Ray Allen, for example. Like remember, like early
Okay.
on in Ray's career, he was like the guy, the Milwaukee
Yes.
years and
Yep.
stuff, and things went through him. But when he had success later on in the second stage of his career,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know what I mean? He wasn't like, I need my touches. You know what I mean? Like it was kind of like he was in that shooter role. He did it
No,
in Boston effectively. He did it in Miami effectively.
I was just
Um,
about to say when he was in Boston and Miami, when he was on the court, don't let him find a corner.
yeah,
Because if he was
and,
in the if he had an opportunity to get that corner three and he had a clean look, it was going to be all net.
yeah, right. And it's just kind of like one of those things where that was like the ultimate teammate move, where it was like Ray
Oh, for sure,
understood that he was no longer that player. The guy that he was in Milwaukee and things like that, where he was going to carry the load offensively and be this like walking bucket for teams, but
for sure.
he was going to have a role, and so you try to illustrate that to you try to communicate that, I think, to somebody like PG, like, hey, we need you in this like Ray Allen role. Like these guys are
Sure.
going to be the core, but we need you to do some other things. Maybe appeal to the player's ego a little bit with that.
Oh yeah,
Um, and they'll be like, "Oh yeah, like I'm all about that." Whereas, like, yeah, like I mean, that's the ultimate like player that I think of in terms of like being able to make almost a second career doing something different than what made them who they were. Ray Allen was a terrific player early in his career,
for
but
sure.
in those stages, those teams were built a certain way, and
Yeah. Oh yeah.
he had a different look. Like he was still a part of the team, but in a different way. Equally as important, but um, like you got to try to communicate that to this group, like with all the things we had already mentioned about, hey, like the East is wide open. If things break the right way for us, we could be competing, in the East. So,
Right.
um, like that has to be the internal message, you know what I mean? And um, so,
Absolutely.
like, hopefully that is being communicated to those guys, and you know, um, and we move forward with our our smallish but insanely athletic guards. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean,
So
I think that to me seems like the way that they've built this roster. That seems like it's like kind of the only option. Um, but when you look at all right, so before we jump out of here, let's talk about some other teams in the East. Um, any of the teams that are kind of laying in the weeds, because I got one that I think could, based on some offseason moves, could make a jump.
yeah, I think we saw them just last night. I think Orlando is going to be in that mix, and the Desmond Bade trade. I mean, really kind of was 4 first rounders or something like that. They really kind
Yep.
of went in on that. I think Paulo's a great player. They still have Franz Wagner. I mean, like they got some talent, and
Oh, most definitely.
yeah. So I think they're going to be uh, they might be a trendy pick right now, Orlando,
Yeah.
to kind of take a step forward. So I'm going to say the Magic.
So that was the team that I had my kind of had my eye on.
Yeah.
You know, New York seems like they've taken a step back a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Boston has the injury to Tatum.
Yep.
The Pacers have the injury to Halliburton, which is a shame, right? Because those two guys are some marquee players in the league. But I think the other team, like I think as much as I hate to say it, but like Boston still to me seems like a team that like for whatever reason always figures it out, always
Mhm.
finds your 6, 7, 8 guy coming off the bench. Like they always just find guys. They find guys that you know that can come in and fill that role and be productive. Now listen, that trying to fill that role,
Mhm.
those are some pretty big shoes to fill. So like outside of Orlando, I don't know, like Milwaukee with Giannis, like maybe I was surprised. I thought he was a guy that would get moved over the offseason.
Yeah.
Um, like there isn't really like a huge gap between any of the teams in the East. They all seem to be like kind of in the middle.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a like listen, like the Wizards, yes. Charlotte, yes. Like Brooklyn, but
Yeah.
like we talk about like New York, Orlando, right? Chicago's a team that maybe could jump up and be,
Yeah.
and you could with the right conversation maybe convince me to think more optimistically about them. Um, Atlanta made some moves in the offseason. They're a team that could be,
Yep.
better than people expect.
Cleveland will be in the
Cleveland,
middle. Yep.
Cleveland will be like I'm curious to see how this plays out, but it's like we know to not pay attention to the NBA until like after the Super Bowl.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, I think that's all true. And
Yeah.
all accurate. Boston, like you said, like they always do figure it out.
Yeah.
And I think a player like Jaylen Brown's really going to relish this opportunity to be like the guy in a way that he always kind of played second fiddle to Tatum. I think he'll like kind of internalize that and really kind of try to relish taking that role. We know he can score, so I think he's going to be with one less really big option like Tatum. Here's an
Yeah.
opportunity now for Jalen to kind of step into that role. So I think he will. Milwaukee's kind of like odd in the sense that, like you said, with the Giannis thing, this has been going on for a while now. Like with the is he staying, is he going? It's happened. It's been going on a long time for something not to happen. Whether he just comes
Yeah.
out and hey, like I'm a buck for life, or there's an actual move somewhere.
Yeah.
There just hasn't been like a lot of like we're like rehashing the same news with Giannis,
Very
but it's
very much so. And
very
there
much a
hasn't been like a next the crop of like the next wave of guys
mhm,
like outside of SGA really hasn't kind of come to a
right.
head. Um, I could have sworn, Mark, you could have convinced me that he could have ended up in San Antonio if
Oh,
they had swapped, right?
yeah,
If they had swapped that pick,
yeah,
and traded him for like the second overall pick, and Milwaukee gets Dylan Harper, and you
right.
know, that was I know that was a big conversation, but um, I don't know.
Yeah,
I think there's a lot of talent in the West. Um, between between Minnesota, between Oklahoma City, right? Those two teams are kind of the two teams that have kind of like stepped in front of everybody. But I don't know. I'm curious, right? LeBron made his decision again,
yep.
and that whole that whole thing I know that bothered a lot of people, but I mean, he hung along long enough to drag his son kicking and screaming into the NBA. So not gonna give him a whole lot of crap for that. And Mark, anything else NBA related you wanted to jump on before we pop out?
No, no, I don't think so. We touched on all of it, I think, and one more preseason game I think to go before like the regular season gets underway. And I think the Sixers have the Wolves, right? I think they're gonna play Minnesota,
Yeah,
and yeah. So yeah, I'm just kind of ready for I'm gonna have a closer eye, I think, on the Sixers at the beginning of the year to
Okay.
see who's kind of like how they kind of manage a lot of the things we just discussed. And because I think, it's if they do get into the playoffs and maybe win a round, I gotta say, like, Nick Nurse has to be in Coach of the Year conversation to be able to manage all of that, all of those pieces. He's
Yeah,
got
I
to
would
be, I
agree.
think. So I'm interested to see the job there.
I'm going to approach this season with the Sixers the same way I've approached the last couple seasons with the Flyers. Literally no expectations of anything.
Yeah,
That way, it's all beneficial, and I'm
yeah,
not going to be disappointed. Not disappointed like I was this last Thursday night. So
yeah.
those feelings will not come about for a very long time. But
Yeah. I think number
listen,
2 is up for number 2 in like Philly sports interest. I think has to be Phillies did some irreparable damage. I think to a lot of
I
our
mean, they're
like
Mark, just to kind of go like they put themselves in the Sixers conversation very quickly.
yeah, yeah,
And people are kind of like, oh well, talk to me in the playoffs.
right.
Their record at home in the playoffs has been bad over the
Hmm.
course of the last 10 playoff games. Um, their star players have been not productive.
Mm,
I mean, the correlation between the
yeah.
Sixers and Phillies in those two different runs,
Mm.
um, the commonalities are all there. The middle part of the Venn diagram is very full.
Yeah, like yep.
If you
It is.
those two interlocking circles, there's more in the middle than there is on any other side.
Yeah, I feel like we've talked about these things on this very show. It's interesting that it's
It's I always think about Mark. It's that cycle of like I think I may have like made like a graphic or something at one point, but it's like it's the recycle sign of like, oh, the Sixer season starts. Oh, the Flyer season starts.
yeah.
Oh, the Philly season starts. Oh, the Eagle season. It's just like it's
Yeah.
just this loop, Mark. It's what we've inherited. It's
Yes.
the fandom that like it's the what is it? It's the hope that kills us.
Yes. Yes.
Well, listen. Here's
What a
hoping.
great what a great yeah, what a great ending there. It was beautiful.
It's the it's the hope that kills you.
Yep.